Welcome to Modernize and Thrive, shifting dynamics from your server room to Azure. In the Modernize and Thrive section, oops, I did it again. Stop, reset. Welcome to Modernize and Thrive, shifting dynamics from your server room to Azure. In the Modernize and Thrive session, we're going to dive into the process of moving your current Dynamics GP, SL, or nav environment from an on-premise server to Azure with Velosio's expert guidance. So join us as we learn how to protect your most valuable resource, your data. And we help protect your business and help it thrive by modernizing your environment inside of Azure. My name is Carolyn Norton. I'm the Cloud Practice Director here at Velosio. I've been here for almost 2 decades now, working exclusively in cloud and Microsoft applications, helping organizations such as yourself really explore and unpack all the technical advantages that are inside Microsoft.
And hey, everybody, I am Marty Rubin. I'm the Practice Director for GP, SL, and more recently, BC. I've been doing this in the Microsoft channel for over 20 years. Definitely looking forward to spending this the next 30 or so minutes with you all. And what Carolyn and I are really looking forward to do here is just really have a conversation. Ask some questions, provide some answers, and we're confident you're going to find a lot of value in this. So, Carolyn, I'd like to start out with a question for you. What can an organization do to get started in the cloud?
That is a very perfect way to start the conversation. How can an organization get started in the cloud? You know, it's funny with the cloud, everyone sees and understands what it is today, but it also can seem very daunting, and organizations often know there are benefits inside of cloud, but haven't taken that first step, not sure where they need to start. And so that's the perfect question, right? How do you get started? Really, you want to think about how can cloud help your organization? It doesn't have to be something large or expansive. It can be as simple as driving higher efficiency, adding a level of protection, adding a layer of resiliency to what essentially runs your organization and your business. How can you use the power of the cloud to help out your org? Take that, unpack it, and look for opportunities inside of your organization today that can be helpful if you move it into the cloud. That's how I would approach it. That's how organizations should start having those conversations so that they can start really unpacking what the potential is out there. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back to you and ask you, when you start thinking about how an organization should move to the cloud and what they want to think about in terms of benefits, what applications would you recommend or would you suggest thinking about moving into the cloud?
Okay, well, the short answer is almost all applications can be moved into the cloud. Okay, so at a minimum, what we're here talking about today are systems like SL, GP, and nav. So the goal, as you're thinking about moving into the cloud, and I'll describe a little bit more about when you hear the word cloud in terms of these applications. So you're running GP, SL, or nav, and there's ISVs or add-on solutions. So all of those add-on solutions can be moved into the cloud. There may be other applications as well that instead of leaving them running on servers on-prem or in a data center somewhere else, those could be moved into the cloud. So I guess for purposes of this particular question, think about any applications, business applications that you're running could be moved into the cloud. So really think about the cloud as, it's another server environment, essentially, with security layers, that your data is protected. You don't have to worry about managing servers. these applications will run in essentially that kind of environment called the cloud. Let me give you an example. Another application besides the ones that you're most familiar with, again, GPSL, nav, and any of the add-ons. So if you're in healthcare, you may be running an electronic medical records system. If that's an installed application, that too can run in the cloud. And the benefits of that would be if it's integrated with one of your ERP solutions, the integrations will run more efficiently, and that's one less application that you'd have to maintain on servers on-prem. Now, we've been using the word cloud, so I want to use it in this context as well. There could be applications like a CRM system, or maybe a few of you out there running Concur for expenses and invoices. Those are cloud-based solutions. So not server installs, but those also, integrations may be built between those and your ERP. So those wouldn't necessarily have to be moved into the cloud because they're already in the cloud as cloud-based solutions. But just wanted to give you a little bit of a differentiation between cloud, as Caroline and I are really talking about it, and what cloud in terms of the cloud solutions. So hopefully that's helpful, answers the questions, helps you think about your business applications and how they could all potentially be moved into the cloud.
That makes sense. And knowing that and I'll say traditional system and a already cloud native system can integrate seamlessly, just alleviates that concern of, okay, well, I know how it is today. Will it function the same way if it's moved into the cloud? And it sounds like the answer is yes. And I expect that the answer is yes. But that also helps bring those traditional systems up into the cloud so that they can get closer to those other cloud components that are already out there for some organizations today.
You got it. You got it. And Carolyn, I guess I can ask you this question, or I can at least tee this up and ask you, with your experience in really managing these cloud environments, in terms of benefits. There's benefits, obviously, of running these business systems in Azure, and I can speak to it at a high level and then ask you to dive a little deeper. So what I could share is in the cloud, these systems running in the cloud, there'll be backups running. It's that peace of mind knowing that the data is safe and secure, server patching and systems compliance all in place. And a really cool benefit is remote connection from anywhere. But beyond those benefits, Carolyn, what other benefits are there that you can share?
Those are great benefits. And I don't want to just, you're right. Those benefits are native inside of cloud. And I want to touch on that a little bit because I sometimes take for granted, although easily reminded, given that I work in the cloud all the time, is, how important it is to have rock solid resiliency. And I say resiliency because it's not just backup. It's just making sure that your environment can recover from a scenario. If there is a power outage, if the internet goes down, if the office is affected, if, there's a million ifs, and being able to have a better resiliency plan for your organization. We're a couple of years removed from our shift to, more of a remote hybrid workplace. But again, those are scenarios that can come up. Nature can come up, issues with buildings and infrastructure can come up. So given an organization the level of resiliency to have a greater level of success by moving into the cloud, it alleviates a lot of those concerns, and you don't have to build a bunch of other contingency plans to protect an organization against that. Backup being my favorite resiliency. It's what I always call, it's a safety net, right? As long as you have a rock solid backup, if a file gets accidentally deleted, or maybe a bad transaction is posted for whatever reason, and you need to roll back to a previous state, you know that the system is being protected and there are iterations of that data that you can always go back to. You don't have to buy a different piece of software. You don't have to learn a whole nother set of concerns. You can easily test it. I mean, there's a multitude of things. And boy howdy, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Marty, when things are going well, nobody really worries about backup, but when things go bad or even slightly awry, knowing that you have that there is just like night and day for organizations. So just knowing that that's out there and better protected and secure, because unfortunately we have had scenarios, Marty and I, where organizations thought that they had the level of resiliency, they had backups that they needed to recover from, and unfortunately that wasn't the case. And so I wouldn't want to be the business leader that has to tell a team of folks, hey, I guess what, you have to rekey in weeks, months of data because something happened. It happens. Nothing is perfect in life, but trying to mitigate those risks is all one can really do, and having that protection in the cloud is important. Patching, I know it's boring. Patching an environment is not really all that crazy awesome, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there that want your data, and your data is super important. What it could be as simple as your vendors list, the contacts that you do business with. I mean, it doesn't have to be dollars or numbers or anything like that. It's information that someone's seeking. And so protecting your environment, that's a cumbersome job. And either you buy a piece of software to do that, or you hire someone that sits there and assures that that's their concern day in and day out. Whereas if you move it into the cloud, there's already mechanisms in place. And of course, a lot of organizations run Microsoft Windows. So they're taking the data of you being in the cloud and many other customers in the cloud, and they're pushing those security updates for you in a methodical manner. So you don't have another piece of software you don't have to worry about. And there's manageability that's a little bit easier than it would be on premise. I mean, those two alone is like your lock in front of your house, and then the alarm system. It's just like the layer of protection, on a day-to-day, you're not worried about it so much, but it gives you that comfort that you have that protection there. So just baseline, Marty, just those two items alone, that's going to give you that greater peace of mind. The greater benefit of going into Azure with any application, in this case, we're talking about SLGP and Nav, is now you're getting exposed to all this awesome, cool stuff that already exists natively in the cloud. And now this application that you live and breathe inside of every day, think of how long you spend in this application day in and day out, moving it into the cloud. Okay, great. It's protected. It's being taken care of. But now you're exposed to a bunch of other cool stuff. Its proximity to all these other cool cloud features are now that much more accessible. And then Marty mentioned earlier, for those cloud native solutions that are out there, it's that much easier to integrate. So you're like setting yourself up, you're teeing yourself up for access to all the benefits. And like I mentioned earlier, Microsoft, takes all that telemetry, all that information, and they're either building new services, scenarios to continue to accelerate how an organization thrives inside of the cloud, how an organization can be protected in the cloud. So you get access to all these cool different things that is a little harder to access when you're on-prem, right? You're in that realm. And then I'll gently mention AI because AI is a thing and something that's being talked about, and we had a track on that that you can look at further. But that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, like the exposure to all these cool different things that can make your job way, way more efficient than maybe it would be if it was on-prem. I know that was a long answer, but I love
good answer. Good answer. And actually, Carolyn, I want to just elaborate a little bit, just because you mentioned that you and I and other folks on the team, we've actually experienced the situations where we've had to help our clients first get a system stood up in the cloud, which we've been able to do very quickly in terms of a recovery effort. But unfortunately, in some instances, those backups weren't there. So having backups, knowing that your system is being patched and is secure, it's something that, really when you're using these systems, like Carolyn said, day in, day out, you live and breathe them when you're working in them. And it's like something you don't even have to think about. But when things go awry, to use Carolyn's words, that's when you're like, oh, now I see the benefit. So getting in front of that is a huge, huge benefit. And I know we had another session, and hopefully many of you attended, on just the life cycle of these ERPs, SLGP and NAV. And I believe they also touched on life cycle of operating systems. So if you didn't get to attend, definitely recommend watching the recording if you didn't get to see that session.
Why worry about the life cycle along with the application? Like, what's I know there's a session, but just cliff notes.
Cliff notes. So the life cycle, it's one thing to think about the application itself and whether it's in mainstream or extended support. But more importantly, it's what on those servers that those systems are running on, what is the operating system that they're running on? I mean, if it's 2008 R2, if it's 2012 R2, I mean, 2008 R2, end of life already, 2012 R2, very close to end of life. And that is where the patches don't get released for those versions anymore. And so you may be running, I'm going to throw out GP 2016, end of mainstream support. Can you still use it effectively? Absolutely. If the operating system that it's running on has reached end of life and there's no patches, now you've opened yourselves up to security vulnerability. So that's my Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, there you go. No, that's perfect. And it's true. I wish I had an analogy, like a car analogy, but it's similar, right? It can drive, sure, but if something happens, then you're more at risk. And that mechanism that drives an organization can be compromised.
And maybe this isn't a great analogy, but it just popped into my head. You're driving your car, and how often as you're driving somewhere do you think about the insurance policy that you've got? Probably not very often, because the car is running great. And but that's the peace of mind knowing that you're covered. But it's not something that you think about day in, day out, because unless you're running on systems and you're uninsured, so to speak.
Absolutely. So we know, or we talked about, like, the benefits, the common benefits, I want to say, even though, again, backups and patching and security are very important, especially if you have to get cybersecurity insurance, very important. But let's say an organization figures out what they want to do in terms of getting into the cloud. They've assessed that application, hopefully SLGP, NAV, or anything else. And they understand the benefits. What is the process of moving into Azure? How does that look like? What level of effort does an organization have to have? Because that's got to be another, I don't want to say fear, but concern of an organization. Yeah, I get the benefit, but what does it mean for us?
Well, so not knowing when you hear, oh, we got to move into the cloud, it's really the unknown about how does that happen that may create that anxiety, or the thought, oh, we just can't do that. We've been running our systems this way for so long. So, but I'll put it this way. As I described earlier, think about the cloud in terms of SLGP and NAV as really, it's another server environment. So if you all have ever done an upgrade and you moved from one server environment to another, in a way, it's similar to that. So you're running GPSL NAV. Let's say you're on older versions. Well, we would provision the servers in the cloud. Carolyn's team would provision the servers in the cloud, and we would install all the applications on the cloud servers, and then we would do the migration. So essentially taking the databases that are currently installed on-prem or hosted somewhere else, and migrate them and upgrade. You don't have to upgrade, but you could just migrate, again, depending on what version you're running today. And then it really works kind of like you've done an upgrade in the past, except now your environment is going to be in the cloud. And so we would have an onboarding session and really just show you how to connect, confirm connectivity to the cloud environment. You'll see your applications out there that'll look pretty much the same as they do today. And you launch them, and you really then you go through your testing process. So again, having gone through upgrades in the past, you're going to go through some user acceptance testing, execute the use case scenarios, and make sure that all of your processes work. And it could be the core functionality in the ERPs, could be the integrations, any customizations you may have, ISVs, other workloads, or those other applications I referred to earlier. And once testing's completed and everything is successful, meets all of the expectations, then we just say, okay, well, when are we ready to do the production migration upgrade? Schedule it, execute it, and one day you're working in your systems, and then next day you're essentially working in the same systems, just in a different environment.
Does it interrupt their day-to-day in this process? Do they have to give up a lot of work time processing in their current environment?
Yeah, good question. So the answer is no. Now, there will be downtime when we do the production migration. And then, again, I keep alluding to if you've done an upgrade before, the testing is critical. So where would most of your time be spent? Testing to make sure everything's working the way it needs to work. And then just being out of the system for a day, 2 days. We also do this over weekends. So, it may cause no business disruption at all.
And they can feel comfortable in the new environment, posting, entering transactions, anything that's in a day in a life for that particular individual or that role. They can validate to their heart's content. And then only after they give the thumbs up, then we go ahead and do the final cut over.
You got it. In fact, this is a good segue, Caroline, I think, to and I've kind of touched on it in the way I described that process, but the other maybe concern or what a worry is, well, what's different? How is the user experience going to be different? Well, from an application, I'll speak to it from an application standpoint, Carol, and then you can delve into the environmental aspects. But from an application standpoint, it's really not going to be any different, because the applications are still all the same. And even if you go through an upgrade with GPSL Nav, the features, the user navigation over the years, it really hasn't changed. So the user experience is going to remain virtually unchanged in terms of the usability of the applications. But Carolyn, I'd like for you, if you could speak to what might be different or even similar in terms of from an environment perspective.
Sure. Yeah. So you're right. The application is not changing very much, but what we do with the cloud is, again, we want to make sure that we're leveraging all the best items in terms of infrastructure. So working with your team, we've worked closely for many years, and we understand how to lay out the environment, how to provision the servers. You don't have to order anything hardware wise. You order the cloud, but you don't order anything hardware wise. We're going to provision the environment. We're going to make sure that the security is on point. It's protected. It's not wide open, but it is open for your end users to be able to access from anywhere, as long as they have the internet connection. That's the caveat, obviously. But if they are working from home, if they work from the office, maybe they work hybrid, maybe they're traveling, and you're a busy bee like me, and you want to be able to pop in and do a couple of things before the day goes on. You can access the environment from anywhere securely. So it's not this, I remember in the past, the biggest thing to get into an environment security was VPNing, right? Many of you probably have heard of VPN before. It's not very new technology, and you would have the VPN in. Oftentimes it's a little cumbersome. Maybe it doesn't work. You can't get in. You got to call IT. Hey, I got to get this report. With the
and
cloud,
it's also bouncy. Like, I'm going to throw this
yeah,
in at the start of it. VPNing to this machine, to then
oh,
to this machine, right?
yes, jump machines, we
Jump
call them
machines.
jump servers or jump machines. Again, like this, it was great in its time because that's what was available, but it's not nearly as cumbersome as it once was. Again, technology evolves and things get better and improve. And so when we put you in the cloud, the accessibility is super secure. You're accessing your application. Your app, once you authenticate, your application presents on your machine just like it looks like if you had it installed locally on your machine. You really are not going to know the difference. And just to make sure that you feel comfortable, Marty alluded to earlier, we have an onboarding process. So we're not going to just chuck information over to you and hope for the best, because we know it's easy, but we want to make sure that we're along with you and make sure that you have clicked the double click, put your username and password in, and it's as simple as that. And you're going to get your application presented to you so that you can authenticate in. The vast difference here is the power behind where your application is now. You can access it from anywhere. You have the latest and greatest. We always encourage, you don't have to, like Marty mentioned, but we always encourage upgrades, because now you're getting the latest and greatest. Your life expectancy of your application and the supporting infrastructure is that much longer. And you might get access to additional things, like for example in Azure, you can enjoy a longer shelf life when it comes to the application. Maybe you're not ready to go bleeding edge, but you want to extend it a little longer because you're going to need it for, I don't know, 2-3 years, whatever your game plan is. But accessibility, easier from anywhere, secure, printing, running reports, doing transaction, posting batches, all that fun stuff that you love to do day in and day out is part and parcel. And Marty and I have worked together where we've also taken this as an opportunity to see if there's anything we can improve upon. Maybe a process is taking a little bit longer today, and we'll talk through if that is accurate, right? Maybe it is, as long as it needs to take. 9 times out of 10, we can try to figure out where in the environment, whether it's application or infrastructure, where we can add a little bit more juice, beef it up, and improve on it. Because I keep talking about efficiencies, because it's one thing to protect the application, but I would bet dollars to donuts if you can do a job that, let's say, takes you 3 minutes. You can go get a cup of coffee, come back, and I hope it doesn't take you that long. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but takes 3 minutes, you go get a cup of coffee, you come back, it's still running, and we move you up into the cloud. During that testing period that Marty mentioned, if there are areas of improvements, or hey, I want to learn a little bit more about this, I know your team does this a lot, where we kind of explore other areas to like look into inside the application, we can do that in the cloud, get those benefits, gain those benefits. And again, we don't go live until you give the thumbs up. So hey, is everything working one-to-one as it was on-prem? Great. But is there an opportunity here to add some quick wins, do some enhancements, leverage other tool sets? I mean, you have that space to do that and grow as an organization. Have you seen that, Marty?
Once or twice. So I wanted to throw this out there for you, Carolyn, and we can kind of tag team on the answer. But can you think of maybe a real life example of when we've moved one of our clients to the cloud, and just the experience? Just kind of speak to it from that practical standpoint.
Practical.
And it doesn't have to be one that one of those situations where it was urgent. They shot down and we got to get them back up and running.
That was honestly my first like go-to, because
Yeah,
you and I have been in the trenches many a times where,
Mhm.
And I guess I'll share. We'll get the SOS, right? Oh my gosh, X thing happened. It could be anything, and then we're
could be 8 o'clock at night and we get the SOS. we're on the phone.
That's and that's what we do for our clients, and we get moving, and I mean, like, the less amount of downtime, the better. The less amount of data loss, the better. And we'll try to work with the organization, work with what they got, and let's get them back online, number one. And number two, something that a lot of people don't realize is how to protect the organization in terms of, again, I'm thinking ransomware because that's the most popular one. But if you got compromised and let's say you're now spewing out a bunch of fake invoices from your application, that doesn't look good for an organization. Internally for your employees, that's very stressful. Now, again, I mentioned rekeying in a bunch of stuff. It's a lot. When it happens, it becomes a lot. So obviously preventing that from happening is great, but if it does happen, we've had scenarios, Marty and I and our teams, where we've helped clients quickly stand up in the cloud, get the data up there, make sure the data is not compromised, because that's key, right? You don't want to go through it again. You've already gone through it once. You don't want to go through it again. And you want to make sure that as you're putting in these efforts and we're putting in these efforts to get your organization online, we're again, this is what I mentioned earlier, where we're taking the opportunity to plus or improve on something. We're strengthening your resiliency. We're strengthening your security. We're improving your application, where it sits, and all the peripherals around it, like the ISVs that Marty mentioned. So I'm sorry, I went right to the I went right to the like crazy zone.
That's okay, because that's what really resonates. And I guess what I'll try to emphasize now, that we're certainly not recommending that we just wait until we have one of those crazy zone situations. This is, planning ahead, making sure no business disruption, because those ransomware events are no fun for anyone. But the planning ahead, I mean, if this, the thought of running your applications in the cloud, I mean, if this sounds appealing, it sounds like the right next step on your cloud journey, really give that some thought. I was going to share something else about that related to, and I might have said this earlier, but I don't remember, so I'm going to say it again. GPSL Nav. These are not cloud-based ERPs. Okay, so you may hear,
I call them traditional.
Yeah. You may read stuff on the internet that you see the words end of life, sunsetting. If you see that, please reach out to your account manager. You can reach out to me, Carolyn, and we will tell you what the real life cycle is. And if you attended that session that I mentioned earlier, you'll know what the real life cycles are. And there's a runway for these traditional ERPs. And if your thought is like most everyone else's is, cloud it's here to stay, and you're not quite ready to give up and move away from your traditional ERP, we support all three of them. We'll continue to support all three of them, and all three of them do have a life cycle.
And they have a runway that may be greater than what's on-prem, again, by moving them to the cloud and giving them some more time. So you're not forcing or rushing through oh no, I have to compare and contrast and see what makes sense as, yes, that you have you
got some breathing room.
You do. And that's funny, because that's a really good example of what we've done for clients, right? They are ready to adopt cloud. They want to get the most out of that application that they know and love. They know it. They're using it. It's working for their organization. Let's give you some longevity, a little bit longer, so that you can play with that system that's helping run your your org. And like I said, you're gaining access to some other stuff inside of the cloud. And I say cloud, but there's lots of there's data lakes, there's function apps, there's AI Copilot. I mean, there's
Copilot.
a plethora of cool technology around your application that can cushion and support it and give it
and lengthen its life cycle,
yes, yes,
and effectiveness. So yeah,
yes,
for sure.
Yes. So not only do you get that breathing room, like you mentioned, right? You don't have to go to the next thing quickly unless you're ready. You can get that plus the benefits of going into the cloud. And then I know some organizations that we've put in the cloud where their infrastructure hasn't either needed to be retooled, needs to be upgraded, adjusted, flow with the organization's current state, right? And instead of investing in new software, training on new software, making sure the software works, and then rolling it out, introducing the change to I'm saying all that very like haphazardly, but it is a very daunting process.
Oh yeah.
To roll out to an organization and hope for a solid adoption. Because I think you and I both know if your end users don't like using it or find it difficult or challenging, game over. Like all that, for as much best intentions your organization had, it may not fly, it may not work out. As opposed to this, you know the application, you're happy with it, you know how to use it, lift it up, put it into Azure, and then you're getting that benefit without having to do this massive retooling, re-architecting, restructuring. That's right. And again, get the benefits of moving. I could talk all day on.
I know we're running short of time. And I hope this is helpful, but I would say re-emphasize or reiterate, keep planning. Think about that journey to the cloud, and it could be the baby steps. It could be move the traditional system up there, but do it on your terms and your timing, and not feel rushed to move to a cloud ERP. And certainly you don't want to be put in the rush situation if in one of those events happen. So
exactly. And that's the key here is, the cloud is wonderful. There's a lot of benefits. It can enhance your applications, not only your core business application. This runs your business. This is where you do a lot of your critical work, not your upgrading it. And I say upgrade in the sense of like adding and making it more robust and more secure and all these additional features, and alleviating those risks and concerns by moving into the cloud. But as Marty mentioned, we love talking about this all day, every day. I don't want to.
That's kind of what we do.
It is. Marty and I collaborate all the time. We always want to make sure that our clients and hopefully potential new clients are getting the benefits. We love the software. We're here to support you and partner with you. It's my favorite word. It's a partnership. You're getting the best out of the technology. We're here to support you. We're looking for your feedback so that we can help guide each other to your ultimate goal. So if you want to come hang out with us, visit us at the social lounge. We can, you can ask questions here, or you can visit in the social lounge. Or Marty, if you don't mind, people can reach out to you on LinkedIn. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or just shoot us an email, and we're happy to just sit down and talk. We do this all the time. We have these active conversations. Hopefully you're thinking about what is your next, how do you plan for cloud, and what are the benefits? What are your goals? I mean, we talked about all the cool things that we see day in and day out, but there might be a bunch of other stuff that we can help you figure out in terms of your goal. So reach out. We're happy to help and get you to the cloud. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Enjoy the rest of our sessions, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.